Okay, thank you very much. And thank you to NMR Resources for hosting the IVEN conference. So I'm going to talk about our NMRbox platform today, which is part of a P41 NIH Center grant. We are the National Center for Biomolecular NMR Data Processing and Analysis. And just for those of you who are going to be at the ENC this week, here's a link to some of the posters that the NMRbox team will be presenting. And I'll be presenting tomorrow from 11 to 12:30, poster 1046, if anybody wants to join for additional questions. I'm going to get the acknowledgements out of the way early. So the NMRbox project is a larger project than just the platform, but I'll primarily be talking about the platform today. I just want to highlight a couple people. Jeff Hoke, who is our PI, our fearless leader. Adam Schuyler and Gerard Weatherby and myself are primarily responsible for the platform that you'll hear about today. And I also got to give a big shout out to Frank Delaglio because he's given many shout outs to NMRbox today. And I've tried to match the color of his name there to his beard for today. So NMRbox has been around for around 6 years. The motivation behind it originally stemmed from going about and doing a lot of data processing tutorials about using Maxent for doing non-uniform sampling data processing. And every time we would go to an event to try to teach people and run tutorials how to do things, it was always a nightmare. He'd always spend half the day just trying to get people to install the software and get things functioning properly. So that's kind of set us off on a quest for there's got to be a better way of handling the vast amounts of software in NMR. And there are actually a lot of different motivations behind creating the platform. One is the discovery of software. There are hundreds upon hundreds of different software packages that exist. Many are very old, but are still very, very useful. And new packages are being developed at an ever-growing pace. So there's just a massive discovery problem. There's a lot of great programs people could use that they don't even, potentially their labs don't even know that these solutions exist. Obviously, platforms and libraries, there's various versions of Linux, there are Windows, there's OS X. Apple has changed things quite dramatically recently. Various library incompatibilities. So maintaining all this software can be quite complex. Persistency of software, a lot of times software, graduate students move on, funding sources for the software disappear. For whatever reason, a lot of good software becomes more and more difficult to run on more modern platforms. Complexity, some software packages, I'm throwing an example up here of a program called King, relies on 8 different packages, 6 of which are old and no longer maintained. So it's so complex. I believe King is now running on 1 or 2 computers anywhere in the world. Even the developers of King have a hard time keeping it going. And then reproducibility is another major goal and becoming a point of emphasis from NIH. There's a nice quote from David Donahoe that a computational study is reproducible when it provides the complete software environment needed to reproduce the figures. So NMRbox starts to make take a step in that direction. So as I alluded to earlier, the NMRbox project is a larger project. It has multiple components to it. One of them is the platform, which is I'm going to call NMRbox VM or just NMRbox for the rest of today's talk. And what it is a virtual machine that's loaded, pre-configured with lots of NMR software to do your NMR data processing and analysis. It basically zero barrier entry. It also is computational storage, networking, and support services to run that platform for you. It's also about archiving the software into versions. So we'll always be able to run older versions of software. And there's obviously significant backend infrastructure. And I put evolving because the NMRbox platform is continuing to evolve. As technology changes, as the needs of the community change, we're constantly evolving our platform. I speak very quickly about some of the other components of the larger P41 centric grant. That is, there's a data capturing component. There is a Bayesian analytics, which are primarily focused on metabolomics analysis. We have driving biological problems, and we have very significant amount of community engagement. We have user and developer support. We have many external workshops, material for courses and tutorials. And we host a lot of workshops, both ourselves and many other groups that are hosting workshops will host them on the NMRbox platform. Fairly large, a larger number of people are even using NMRbox in their coursework, where their students are using NMRbox in their classes. So the NMRbox virtual machine, what is in it? So first of all, the acquisition of software. We have over 200 packages available inside the platform, and we tried to be very agnostic. So we're not picking our favorite software. We're essentially installing all the software that we can that we have access to, and which we have time to install. And primarily the installation now is being driven by requests from the NMR users themselves. The platform is Ubuntu. Currently, we're running 18.04. We use the long-term support versions of Ubuntu, so security updates and things will be around for a number of years. But we actually use the XFCE desktop environment, and that allows us to have a much more robust graphical user interface for remote users than the traditional Ubuntu. For NMR software, we have all flavors of NMR software: data processing, analysis tools. I mean, it covers the entire range: solid state, solution. Way too many software titles to outline. I'll just make note of a couple. We do have Open VNMRJ and Topspin, and we also have MNOVA, which is one of only a couple commercial software packages that we have. And we actually have a university site license to distribute MNOVA to all of the NMRbox users. But in addition to NMR software, we have a large plethora of other scientific software. Hybrid methods are becoming very important these days. So in addition to NMR, we have a lot of SACS software, cryo-EM, molecular dynamics, visualization tools, bioinformatics tools, anything that our users are requesting or are useful to include to help enhance the NMR software that is included. One other note is we now have the University of Connecticut's site license to MATLAB is now accessible to all NMRbox users who are running on our platform. They cannot download it and run it locally, but if you're running on our servers, you actually have access to all of MATLAB. And I believe we have all of the MATLAB toolboxes as well. Lots of other utility packages, text editors, office tools, drawing tools. And more recently, we've been making a major emphasis to try to include as many development libraries, Python libraries, and just other development libraries. So people who are doing their development on NMRbox generally will have things, programs will be able to be compiled without having to install additional packages. So where can you see what's installed on NMRbox? Well, inside NMRbox, Adam Schuyler has made a very nice tool called the NMRbox Software Explorer. It's just a program can be launched. You can get a list of programs, and then it gives a list of all of the binaries or the programs that could be the different ways of executing it, and then information about the software, with description and various other pieces of information. The exact same information could just be seen from the NMRbox website. If you just go to nmrbox.org/software, you get a long list of various software packages. And we need to do a little bit better in our categorizing of software, but there are some search capabilities as well. So who can access NMRbox? So currently, NMRbox is only available to academic users and to nonprofit users, and government, I should say, as well. It is not available to commercial entities at this time, maybe in the future. It is 100% free for the users, and there are two different ways it can be accessed. It can be accessed as a downloadable VM, where you're going to download the image and you'll have to run it on your local hardware with your own hypervisor. The one main advantage you get in this method is that you have offline access. So if you find yourself working without internet access, the downloadable version is a good choice. You also get root permission. So if you want to alter the system in any way you see fit, obviously you have complete control. And what we do now with the downloadable VM is it doesn't come with any of the NMR software. It's basically it's a system that's pre-configured and ready to go, but we have a software installation tool built into the downloadable VM where the user will just select which NMR software packages they want and install them themselves. The problem is the virtual machine has grown much too large to download the entire image. And it's wasteful for people to have all of the software because it just takes up too much local space. So now we allow you to just install the software packages you want and leave other packages off your platform. However, while the downloadable VM is used and a number of people have downloaded it, by far the much more preferred method of accessing NMRbox is what we call platform as a service. This is where you connect into our servers and you're using our computational power. You can connect in seconds using real VNC or SSH. It runs anywhere you have an internet connection, and it doesn't even have to be a very good internet connection. About 5 or 6 megabits per second will get the job done. The jobs are persistent even when you disconnect. So if you start a long running job and you disconnect, the jobs continue to run. You have access to high core, high memory virtual machines. All our virtual machines are backed by GPUs for 3D rendering. So you can get you can do 3D rendering almost as fast over NMRbox as you can on a local computer. The GPUs obviously could be used for CUDA processing as well. We have secure data archival, and we spin up a lot of VMs for custom VMs. Sometimes for workshops, people want a custom VM that they can tweak to their desire. We're able to accommodate that. A lot of times developers we'll be working with developers trying to install software, so we can spin up developer VMs and give them administrative access to help us get their software included in NMRbox. And then we have access to distributed computing as well. Our model is to use high core, high memory VMs and locate several NMR users per VM. And we let the users choose and connect to whichever VM they want. And I'll show more on that in a moment. We do use real VNC for the connections. Many of you probably have used VNC before to remote run your NMR spectrometers. We do use the commercial version called real VNC, but the viewer is free. It works on any device. It has several advantages. It has automatic connections. You don't need to start up your VNC session manually. Single sign-on, your NMRbox account is the account for the login. You don't create a separate VNC account. As I mentioned earlier, the sessions are persistent. Once they start, they will continue to run. So your jobs will continue to run. When you reconnect, it's like you haven't left. You just turned the monitor off and turned it back on again. fully encrypted. We allow easy screen resolution changes. Your printer is actually mapped to your local session, and you can even share sessions with others. And I should say too, we also allow SSH for those who are familiar with SSH. So you can use SSH and to do your connections as well. When you connect to NMRbox, you simply use this viewer. You simply type the name of the server right here. There's a login here that confuses some people. This is a real VNC login for monitoring your bookmarks. It has nothing to do with the NMRbox account. Once you connect, you get a bookmark, and you can just double click that bookmark again and you'll reconnect. One of the nice things about the way the real VNC works is you don't put in ports. Everybody connects on the same port, and then your sessions are just mapped, one, your session is started for you automatically. You don't need to start a VNC server session yourself. It happens upon login. And if one exists, the next time you connect, you'll just be mapped right into that session. Makes it very, very easy for users to connect. One issue some users do have is by default, we connect on port 5900, which is the default VNC port. Some institutions, especially on public Wi-Fi connections, are now blocking higher numbered outgoing ports. So your university may be blocking you from accessing NMRbox on default port. If you put a :443 after the host name, that will connect on port 443. For those who know, that is the same port that is used for secure web traffic, and almost no institutions block outgoing traffic on that port. So that generally will get you connected. So our release schedule and the various NMRbox VMs. So recently we've changed our release cycle, and we are releasing every 2 weeks. We used to be releasing more like every 6 months or even longer, because it would take us a long time to get a full formal release. And the problem is users, we had a hard time accommodating users who want the latest updated software, but at the same time having persistency for users who have a particular version of a software and they want to continue to use. So what we're doing now is we've divided all of our servers into 6 groups, and we update 1/6 of them every 2 weeks. Each VM then has a lifespan of 12 weeks. And in each new cycle, we call it a long-term support version, and that's every 12 weeks. And those long-term support versions will remain running indefinitely. So from the NMRbox website, you can go to your account, and you have a various menus here. One of them is the status, and it will give you all the host names. It will show you which ones you're connected to. In this case, it shows that I'm connected to Iodine. There's an icon here, the VNC icon. If you click on it, it will actually connect you to you. It will tell you if it's a long-term support, how many days till it's going to reboot. And if you're in the advanced, there's a toggle to go into detailed view. If you're in the detailed view, you can see how many CPUs, how many RAMs, how many GPUs, and what the current load is on the server. So if you find your particular NMRbox VM is a little sluggish, you can just exit out of that one, find one that's underutilized, and go use that one. As I said, the long-term support versions or our older versions stay persistent. So currently we're running version 3, 4, 5, 6. We just recently, we've gone to our rolling release model. So the version numbers are going to be a little bit different than just version 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But you can connect to our older versions. Although once the Ubuntu stops providing support for the VM, we actually do power them off. That's why versions 1 and 2 are no longer here. Although we still have versions 1 and 2. If you contact us, we'll certainly start them up for you or work with you to get software on those versions that may no longer exist. That may no longer be running. So screen resolution, we have a very easy tool. You can just hit the display of your graphical desktop. You can choose default screen resolutions we provide. You can choose your own screen resolution. You can make, by setting it to your startup file, you can make it a default, and you can set favorites. So if you work on multiple computers and each has different size screens, you can have basically a click button to switch between different screen resolutions. And that could just be changed dynamically on the fly without affecting your session in any way. Closing VNC sessions. There's a menu bar in VNC. If you click this little X here, this X up here, that will close that will close the viewer. It does not affect your session. So anything that you had running was still running. If you come back and connect in again, it will, everything will be exactly where you left it. And after 1 hour of inactivity, the window actually closes on its own. But again, everything that was running remains running. You can go to your username here and choose logout. This actually does a formal logout of the VM, so any running processes would be terminated. And it's a good thing to do once in a while if you don't have anything running. And every once in a while, you'll see some odd windowing issues where, you know, like the mouse isn't working right or the windows aren't working right. And 99% of the time, if you simply log out, log back in, and all those windowing issues get resolved. So a quick slide of NMRbox by the numbers. We have just under 3,000 users covering almost every state in the US in 56 countries. We have 200 plus software packages, been executed millions of times. Another shout out to Frank. We have over 700 users who have used NMR pipe on the NMRbox platform. And to that, we also do log what users are doing, so we can provide user metrics to software developers. We can tell them how many different users have used their software over a given duration of time. We know the number of executions. We're beginning to now know the actual amount of CPU utilization that the various programs are using as well. We've held about 36 community events, and we continue to hold more. We have support ticket system. We have a lot of support tickets per year that we answer. And on the compute, storage, and networking side, they're not all operational yet, but we're in the midst of having a pretty major rollout to expand our capacity. And we'll have 44 physical servers with over 2,000 cores, 16 terabytes of RAM, a lot of GPUs on every host. We have 600 terabytes of storage and university object storage. We have 100 gig network pipe to the internet with a 40 gig network fiber. And we have, over the next 4 years, a hardware budget of about $800,000. So we'll be buying additional toys to support the NMR community. Inside NMRbox, we have lots of places where your data can reside. Your home folder, of course. We have a public share folder. We have a tutorial folder where all the workshop data that we host is stored. We have a scratch disk for when you need very fast I/O. You can move your files to a scratch disk and get very, very high performance. All our software is located in a single location, so you can easily go snoop around there. Something very new to us is something we're calling repository, and this is where we're holding database resources. Currently, we've just started this, but currently we have the BMRB, the PDB, and the NCBI non-redundant sequence database. And these databases are, you just have access directly from the NMRbox platform. No need to go to the BMRB or PDB to download anything. All the files are right there. And we offer group sharing. This is also a fairly new feature to the NMRbox, but there's the groups feature, and from groups, there's a menu choice where it allows you to add your own collaborative group, and this will basically create a shared folder, and you can invite various NMRbox users or revoke various NMRbox users from sharing that resource. So this is a nice resource that people are starting to utilize for sharing files with lab mates or collaborators or whoever. Transferring data in and out, we support secure copy. I'm just going to go through this very quickly. We support something called Globus. If you've not heard of it, it's a very nice tool. And Globus allows you to transfer files between endpoints. Endpoints could be personal endpoints. These are ones you set up on your own computer. And NMRbox is what's called an institutional endpoint. And once you set up a personal endpoint on your your laptop or your NMR spectrometer computer or your desktop, wherever, you can then transfer files very easily between NMRbox and any of your personal endpoints. It's several nice features. It circumvents all firewalls, so does not matter if your computer is blocked by a firewall or even in a routable network. It will still work. You don't need to be on either endpoint. You could do it from a third location. It can be very efficient for transfers, especially for large numbers of files or large files. It also allows syncing. Well, transfers get restarted if interrupted, and there's a new file sharing capability. Another way to transfer files, one I have not played with much myself, but it actually looks very nice, is called SSHFS. And it allows you on OS X, Linux, and Windows to essentially create a mount point to your NMRbox home folder. And once you do that, the nice thing is your NMRbox home folder just appears as a folder on your local computer and providing full drag and drop capabilities, just like a local drive. We have a support page with frequently asked questions, documentation. We have a support email which is backed by Zendesk for managing all those support tickets. And more recently, we have a public NMRbox Slack workspace, and we are trying to get people to access to join that Slack space. The NMRbox users. It's a great way for us to communicate with the NMRbox users without badgering people with emails all the time. So, and it's been growing quite rapidly over the last month. So if you're an NMRbox user, I do encourage you to join the Slack space. It's a great way for us to keep in touch. Community page, you can see all our past events and workshops, along with all the tutorial data used to drive those workshops, and all of the videos of the workshops and everything from them. Publications, so people who have used NMRbox or cite it, we try to list their publications. If you send us more, if you have them. And one of the new features is we have an NMR calendar that we're supporting. Here's the publications page. And again, if you've used NMRbox, we do encourage you to let us know if you've published, because we'll post an abstract on our site for some advertising, and then it obviously helps us with the funding agencies. And with that, thank you, and I'll take any questions.
Great. Thank you, Mark. And are there any questions?
Hi there, my name is Thomas. I just wanted to give a big shout out for NMRbox. I'm actually from the EPR field, from Deer and all stuff, and I want to thank for hosting not just NMR related software, but other software as well. It's very helpful. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much.